Hey everybody, welcome to the new podcast, the Scud Spotters podcast with myself, Gerald, Mengel, and Mitch from Mitch West Weather. This is episode 1, What the Scud? So pretty fun name, kind of gonna play along a couple different themes here throughout the podcast. I'm gonna go ahead and start right at the beginning. If you haven't already subscribed, definitely consider doing so to my channel and Mitch's channel. I know personally, I've been talking to my subscribers. Big goal is 10,000 subs by the end of hurricane season, and we gained just 20, I think, off of yesterday's video. So we're trucking along, we're getting there, a lot of growth ongoing, and same thing for Mitch. And I'll kind of let Mitch go ahead and now introduce himself.
Yeah, my name is Mitch West. Obviously, I'm here locally here in Columbia, South Carolina, so I'm biased to the Carolinas. But yeah, just got a YouTube channel, Mitch West Weather, and thought that this podcast would be an awesome idea just to talk with Gerald and talk with many other people maybe in the future on here, just kind of jabber jaws just about many stories and just have some fun, just get some good conversation going, just talk about storm chasing, our YouTube journey, personal things, and why this is called Scud Spotters. So,
Yeah, and kind of speaking on that a little bit. So for those of you who are familiar with the weather and storm chasing especially are pretty probably familiar with the term Scud. Those of you who might not be as familiar with that side of things, Scud, just to give you a quick kind of storm chaser, definition in normal terms, Scud is basically a cloud that you think is a tornado but isn't a tornado, or you think is some kind of cool crazy thing, and in reality it's just a random cloud. So we personally, being from the Carolinas, we see a lot of Scud, just the way that the weather works here. And I'm going to go ahead and let Mitch talk a little bit about some of his fun Scud stories and how he's kind of turned it into a bit of a joke himself.
yeah, the story is definitely recent. It's when Gerald went on a chase and got multiple tornadoes here a couple months ago in a very low and severe weather risk. So props to him on that chase. That was phenomenal. But there was a couple smaller scale chatters out there from our folks out in the middle of the country that thought that what Gerald got maybe wasn't a tornado, and they want to say it was Scud. So I mentioned this many times. So if my people are tuning in from my YouTube channel, you guys, I say this all the time. I keep things personal, and I definitely, me or Gerald, do not have dual personalities. That's for sure. It's not super geeking it out all the time, a robot, anything like that. But I basically pretty much said to those people that you could scud these nuts, because I'm sure people have heard that joke a long time ago, 2015 Vine and stuff like that. But it's a joke, harmless, maybe PG-13. But like I said, it's not all seriousness all the time. And Gerald's my boy. I took a little offense to that, and it was an obvious tornado, and I was excited for Gerald. I called him, and he knows. And just hearing some side chatter out there saying that was Scud, I don't know. You must be a blind individual to think that was Scud. But that's why we ended up calling this the Scud Spotters. Not too serious. I thought it was a good, funny name. But yeah, good tone setter.
Yeah, I think it really sets the tone for what we're trying to do with this podcast really well. And I'll tell you guys ahead of time, we have absolutely no idea what we're doing. In fact, this is like the first time we're doing this. We didn't even trial run this. This is quite literally, we're just on a Skype call and we're going to see what happens. So if this derails at some point, that's the reason. But again, this is just a way for us to kind of joke around a little bit and also have fun during kind of these time periods that the weather isn't so active. I mean, obviously we had Beryl a couple weeks ago, which was pretty crazy. Now we're in a little bit of a lull, maybe some pattern change things going on, but for, big time weather stories, not much is happening. So it's just a great way to fill the time, keep you guys engaged, and also just give us a break from having a bunch of maps pulled up in front of us and having to act a little more serious. So yeah, it really plays into that really well. So Mitch, I'm going to let you go ahead and start off talking about your kind of weather and YouTube journey, because you kind of started before me. So I'll let you go ahead and do that, and then I'll kind of jump on afterwards with my own story.
Yeah. And just to quickly say, man, this is going to be cool to do. I think just to hit on these slower times. even if it's not really about the views with this thing, it's just, engaging, having good conversation. And I know Gerald probably agrees, but, we plan on having, probably starting local, sticking with the Carolinas
Big
first,
time.
and then expanding it outwards, and really just getting some people on here, and just having good conversation. And so definitely looking forward to it. But anyways, it's as simple as I started a Twitter back in, I remember the month and everything. It was right after Christmas, December of 2015. I started a Twitter, and it was called SC Weather. Me and a guy named Bryce Shelton actually tag teamed an account. Gerald, you might not even know about this. We kind of tag teamed an account. It's called Midlands Weather. Now it just tweets automated National Weather Service
That is
tweets.
news to me. I had no idea. That's a see. We're all learning things here.
Me and Bryce started it, and then me and Bryce didn't have a falling out or anything like that. But I basically told him, hey, I want to do my thing. I want to call it SC Weather, and just started talking weather. Time went by, a couple years went by, and took me a few years to get to 1,000 followers. It seems like some people can just jump to 1,000 followers like it ain't nothing these days. And I remember that was a huge thing for me when I finally did hit it. And I think, 5 years went by, and, you get the famous retweet from Reed Timmer, just like you did, Gerald. And I got mine in 2020 I was chasing Cinco de Mayo. It was right after COVID was going strong, went up 77, hopped on a tornado warned storm, and Reed Timmer gave me a shout out, gave me a retweet. And I remember, that kind of skyrocketed my followers there. And I thought that was a huge deal, and, I always want to give my respect to Reed. He doesn't shy away from giving people shout outs, just random people. I mean, he'll give, a quote retweet to somebody who doesn't even have a profile picture. So, I always will appreciate the day you did that, and I'll never forget the day you did it. But between 2015, well, you might as well say the beginning of 2016 to 2020, it was just a steady grind, just tweeting. We had a lot of big weather events between then and 2020. We had multiple close calls with hurricanes between Dorian, Matthew, and Irma. And I didn't start mine when the flood happened in October. I hadn't had a Twitter then, but anyways, it really, and just to kind of not get too deep into the details here, even though we got time here with this is why we did it, so we can just yap or jaw for as long as possible. But I think from 2020 to 2022 is when, a lot of growth happened. But at the beginning of 2020, I decided, I don't know why, I don't know what I was thinking, honestly, but I was like, you know what, I'm going to start a YouTube channel. I think that this will be a pretty cool thing to do, and my mentality of it was, I spent a lot of time on my phone on Twitter, giving updates, a lot of updates. I mean, I'm constantly trying to keep people aware of the weather, and I'm enjoying this, but how is there a way where I can get something back from all the time I spend on this, and really just kind of expand my platforms? And literally January 1, 2020, I started my YouTube channel, and I said, hey, I'm going to give myself 12 months to see if I can get monetized. And it took 11 and a half months, and I made it hard on myself. I made it very hard on myself because I did not know what I was doing. You can ask Gerald. It took me 10 minutes to figure out how to get the audio working on before we did this podcast.
Well, one thing I will say,
if you go back and look at some of my oldest videos from 2020, I am doing them in my shed. I literally have an iPad that I'm looking at, and then I'm talking in a camera. I don't know what I was thinking, but it's a good beginning story of what I did. And I just had no idea what I was doing, but I just kept producing videos at least once every 2 days. And I mean, they were only getting like 50 to 100 views. And then I remember the nor'easter in 2020, I had a video, and finally I started doing screen recording and all that. I had a video that really just popped off, and that carried me over the criteria getting monetized, which you need 4,000 watch hours, and it's overrunning 12-month period, and then 1,000 subscribers in that same period. And I literally got in 11 and a half months, and I remember me and Bryce were going to chase a nor'easter. We were heading up I-95, and I got approved for monetization to apply earlier that afternoon. And I got an email at about 2:30 in the morning, pulling up in our hotel in Pennsylvania, chasing a nor'easter, saying that, you know, you were approved. And I remember I was so tired. But I was excited about this chase, and that just added so much more excitement. And yeah, I mean, the rest is history. I think just 2022 though was a big month for me. A couple years later, 2021 was just a slow grind, but 2022 was January. It was when my channel, I would say, went to another level. And since then it's just been steady growth, and built a family on my YouTube. It's a very family-like atmosphere. There's nothing too flashy, nothing too crazy. Maybe one day we'll have a little bit more flash to it. I hope so, but you know, it is what it is right now. And then I've built my social media profile, and you know, I think my goal with my stuff, just to round this off, is that, you know, I certainly want my stuff to be more of a personal feel. I'm not gonna, you know, if I meet you out in public, we're probably not gonna have a conversation about the weather. It's probably gonna be just joking around, cutting up. I love the weather, but I mean, the weather is just a way to connect with people. You know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, I've met some awesome people on this, including you, Gerald, and I've met many good people. I've met one of my best friends, Chris. He's a good friend of mine that name's Chris Wolf. He lives down in the Orangeburg area. You know, he's one of my really, really good friends. I've just met a lot of good people on here that, you know, I can jive with. So that's pretty much my story with YouTube.
Yeah, and I'll just go ahead and tell everyone from kind of the beginning here that, like Mitch was talking about, he might not have known how to get the audio to work, but Mitch is the kind of guy that will outwork anybody, even if he takes the longest route possible, or, you know, maybe makes it a little harder on himself than he needs to. But, I mean, this guy gets up early, and he's really just one of the most deserving people to have a journey like that. Personally, I kind of lucked out, to be completely honest, compared to Mitch. Mitch talked about the whole 11-month thing. I got very lucky when I started YouTube, and I guess I'll back up kind of like Mitch did on how he kind of got big on Twitter. So in high school, I downloaded Twitter. I couldn't tell you, probably freshman year, sophomore year, so 4 or 5 years ago. And I just always loved the weather. So next thing you know, I was looking at one kind of weather account, and then Twitter kind of pushes you in the direction of the things you kind of look at. So next thing I know, I'm seeing all these other people, and I remember one day I found Mitch, and I'll tell you right now with him right here, I remember thinking at the time, like, wow, this guy is cool. He's like head honcho of South Carolina weather. Like, I hope one day he just likes my comment or follows me back. And I kind of just started posting a couple little things, not videos or anything on Twitter, just like oh, it's sunny today, or it's might snow tomorrow, whatever was happening. And then my 17th birthday came around. I want to say it was 17. It could have been 16. I honestly don't remember, but I'm pretty sure it was 17. And they were calling for snow that day. They were calling for like half an inch, maybe an inch of snow. There was like a winter weather advisory, not that big of a deal kind of thing. And it was February and, kind of the foothills of South Carolina, so it wasn't that unheard of to get that sort of thing. And it was just raining for a while there, very heavy rain, like 36 degrees, 35 degrees and rain. And then next thing I know, it just switched. And we see this all the time around here. Mitch can tell you, we never get a winter storm, at least not that I can remember, that starts as heavy snow and ends as heavy snow. That's just not how it happens around here. You usually have some sort of switch, and I'm sure many of you watching this have experienced that as well. And I don't know, I just had the idea, like, you know what, let me pull out my phone, let me record myself standing in the snow giving a report. I don't, whatever. That's totally what normal high school kids do, definitely. But I did it, and next thing I know, it just, one person saw it. And at the time, I had maybe 200 followers on Twitter. I mean, I was like a small account. And then I remember waking up the next morning, and I had all sorts of people quote tweeting it, including Mitch. I don't know if that's when he first followed me or what, but he quote tweeted. He was like, Gerald killed it last night. Then I had Reed Timmer quote tweeted saying, look at this kid, check him out. And that was kind of the start of it. Now, after that, I did some storm chasing in high school. Nothing crazy, like upstate South Carolina chasing. I wasn't going more than an hour away. and I just kind of fell in love with it a little bit. And then fast forward to my senior year, I decide, well, I love this. Let me go ahead and take this to the next level and go to college for it. And now I go to UNC Charlotte and love it, by the way. For anyone interested, I can definitely give you a Charlotte meteorology program pitch in the future. In fact, maybe that'll be a podcast episode. But then, I started that, and my freshman year, going into the winter of freshman year, like December, I reached out to Mitch, and this was, after he'd gotten probably about past 10,000, 20,000 subs by this point, maybe even more than that. I can't quite remember, but he had more subs than I currently do. And I was like, Mitch, that looks fun. I kind of want to do that, not even with the goal of making it big, but just like kind of as practice. I want to go into broadcast meteorology, all these things. And he was super supportive about it. I pumped out a couple videos. And then on one of Mitch's videos, he was nice enough to give me a personal shout out. And I remember freaking out. I was sitting on my couch and I was, refreshing the YouTube studio page, and I had like 100 subscribers. And then I refreshed like 10 minutes after Mitch gave me a shout out, and I hadn't known. And I went to like 150 subscribers. I was like, what is happening? Just kind of freaking out. And that was kind of the start of it. That was December, and next thing you know, I was eligible to be monetized by February. So it was about 3 months. Now, the not so exciting part of that monetization story is the process once I became eligible to actually get monetized. And Mitch can tell you this story too, because I was like nonstop messaging him every day. So I got eligible, and I submitted the application to YouTube. And I hadn't heard anything for like a day, and then 5 days, and then it was a week. And I was like, well, that's kind of strange, Mitch. When did you hear back? And like he just said, it was like an overnight process for him. So I started getting a little like, I don't like this so much. And they got back to me like, I want to say a couple weeks, maybe a month at most later. And they were like, we're not accepting you. They never said why. It wasn't that I didn't meet the criteria, because you literally have to even be able to apply. They just never said why. So I messaged Mitch. I was like, what's happening? This sucks. It's terrible. And another thing about Mitch that I'll say is, if you're ever in a bad mood or you got a problem or a moral crisis, he's the dude to go to, because he will hook you up with some logic and some good sense. And he talked me through it. He said, I don't know, but you just got to keep going. Like, you just got to keep trying. And I took his advice, and I was recording videos eligible for monetization but not getting paid from that March all the way to that August. And the worst part about it, I'll tell you, is I had a couple videos that kind of really blew up in that time frame. At least at the time for me, it was blowing up. It was like 10, 20,000 views. And I was like, wow, it would be great to be getting like some textbook money off of this, some like lunch money. But I just had to keep doing it. And then there was one day in August, I don't remember the exact day, and I don't remember why, but I was just in a bad mood. I was mad at the world for whatever reason, and I was like, you know what, YouTube, screw you, I'm applying again. And by the way, I should add, I applied every like month, because you have to, once they say no, you get like 30 days and then you can apply again. And I applied, like I said, February, March, April, May, and then I didn't for June or July, because I was kind of just lost hope a little bit, because they kept saying no. And then August came, school was about to start, and I was like, you know what, screw it, YouTube, I'm doing it. You're gonna accept me. And I did it. And then not even like a couple hours later, like Mitch said, I get the email back. They're like, welcome to the YouTube partner program. And I'm like, are you kidding me? All this time? And then now you do it. But that was a huge moment for me. And then the other funny part is, I was consistent with YouTube up to that moment, and then school started, I got monetized, and I kind of stopped for a couple months. I was doing like a video a month, a video every other week, especially when there were big hurricanes, but school got crazy, things got crazy, and I kind of went radio silent there till about November, this past November. And I don't know what happened. I think personally, and we'll talk about what kind of weather we like later on in this, but I love winter storms. I love talking about winter storms. I love forecasting them. And we got towards that time of the year, and I don't know, I just kind of had a spark and said, you know what, let me go do the thing. And at this time, I had maybe 2,000 subscribers, probably more like 1,500 that November. And then from then till now, it's been a pretty impressive bump upwards, especially December, January, February, and probably March. I would say I went from 2,000 to about where I'm at now, 8,000 between those months. So it was pretty surreal, and like Mitch can tell you, it's a crazy process to watch something like YouTube blow up, especially when you put so much work into it at the beginning with such little reward. and then you finally get that reward. And it's just kind of a crazy process to watch. So that's kind of my story, and here we are now going into junior year of college and still doing the thing. And I know I am, and Mitch is looking very forward to hurricane season, and especially the next winter season when that starts. So that's kind of our YouTube journey and kind of how we got to where we are now. I think the next thing we're going to talk about is some storm chasing. So I think I yapped for long enough. Mitch, if you want to go ahead and talk about some of your best storm chases, or even just most memorable, and then we'll kind of talk about some of the failed chases after.
Yeah, first off, I know me and Gerald keep blowing smoke up our rear ends here, but we're each other's fans here. We promote the heck out of each other, and I feel like there should be more of that in the weather community. There is. I think there's a we'll probably go back. We'll probably go into that later in the video, but
yeah, I think at the end, and we probably could have done this at the beginning. We'll do some shout outs on some people that helped us get here. In fact, I'll do one now for those of you that are still watching. We're 21 minutes in. If you haven't left yet, go watch the Are You Serious podcast, because that's way better than this and probably way cool. See, there we go, double mugged up.
Yes, sir.
See, that's what's up. So go check that out. That's an awesome podcast. But yeah, we'll do some more shout outs later on. But just want to put that plug in really quickly.
But what I was saying was, a lot of people in Gerald's situation would have gave up. And I'll be completely honest with you. I don't know if Gerald was school, me with just having a family, already a full-time job. Props for Gerald for staying on it, because the dude got monetized. Then he got told to go kick rocks like multiple times, and he still kept applying. I think a lot of people right there would have said, you know what, screw this, I'm done. I tried. And what sucked is that as his friends, I didn't know what to tell him, because our situation was totally different. I could have had some great advice for Gerald, saying if he was 11, 12, 13 months in and he was still struggling to meet that criteria. But YouTube is great, but when it comes to you not being able, they don't tell you any information. Gerald can speak to that way more. So you just don't know what you did wrong. But props to Gerald for staying on it, keeping on applying, and then they just randomly, approve you when they should have done it in the first place. But anyways, as far as chases, best chase was here locally, South Carolina, April 5th, 2022. Funny backstory that I don't want to get too detailed on is, up to that point, people don't realize that I didn't think I never saw a tornado at that point. From up to 2022, April 5th, when we had the little small scale, I wouldn't call it small, it was a pretty much all out tornado outbreak here in South Carolina. I officially didn't think that I'd ever seen a tornado. But it turns out one of my first ever long distance chases to Alabama in 2021, I actually did see a tornado that was confirmed. To me, being a inexperienced chaser, I didn't know what I was seeing. I thought I was seeing just Scud. I thought I was seeing like a funnel cloud or something.
Good promo, Mitch. We appreciate that.
I go back and I look at this now and I'm like, well, dude, there's obviously power flashes. This has to be a tornado. And so, it's like I considered that my first tornado years on down the road. And it's funny, I thought the tornado I saw in Allendale with that chase was my first tornado, but it wasn't. It was my second, and then I went on to see two more that day. But that was my best chase. I grade chases like this, and I've said this one time on social media. I grade it with how much money do I spend to chase? How much money do I have to spend? How far do I have to drive? Which kind of leaks into, how much money you spend, and just how successful is the chase. Yeah, you do it for fun, but at the end of the day, if you drive really far and you're on the way back and you literally just pretty much drove 3 states away to see clouds, you done took a couple of days off work or a day off work, you done burnt gas money. The best thing you can take out of that is, you know what? This is awesome. No tornadoes today, no damage to life, but no damage to property, no lives lost. This is good. This underachieved. But, you be sitting there lying to yourself if you weren't thinking, man, I wish I would have saw something, because that's why you go out there and chase. That's why any storm chaser goes out there and chase. we'll go off. We'll talk about that another day or later on down the road. But anyways, at the end of the day, we're all adrenaline seekers and we want to see something. I mean, we're passionate about the weather. And if we're in the right place in the right time, of course, we want to help somebody and utilize whatever skills we have to help in that situation. But ultimately, we're going out there to, whether we're chasing a hurricane, a tornado, we're going out there to see what we can get, and to kind of just let our passion ooze, if you will. But I would say that April setup a couple years ago was my best chase because it was a backyard chase, basically. Just had to stay in my state. And I made a really good decision. And I was heading towards South Georgia and made a really good decision to turn back and went down to the lower country of South Carolina, kind of the Southern Midlands area. And was one of the first people on it. I was, and yeah, ended up being a wild day. I do have I think I've already told Gerald this and in the other podcast, but my worst chase, I would pretty much dub the entire storm season last year as my entire worst chase. I mean, it seemed like everything that I chased, nothing materialized. I don't think I got any good storm chasing content last year. None. I mean, I chased Idalia, but I made a mistake by going for the eye, and that mixed with the fact that it was a weakening hurricane upon landfall. I should have just stayed inland. I would have been more safe, one. And then two, I would have got those really high winds that I was really seeking. But I was all gung-ho about getting the middle of this hurricane, and I did see a nice little clear blue sky opening, but everybody in Perry, Florida did too. So they kind of got the best of both worlds, got the crazy wind, got the so definitely not afraid to admit I've made some mistakes. But my all-time worst chase was chasing Elsa. Left here at about 2:00 in the afternoon. Elsa was undergoing some moderate strengthening, and I was like, you know what? I really want to get the first hurricane of the season. It was 2022, I believe. Yeah, 2022. And I felt like I was on a good streak. I had a really good storm chasing season in 2021, which was my first official really pressing the issue and going out there and chasing a long distance. I was on a roll, and I was like, man, I feel like I can't be stopped right now. Everything I chase is gold. And I was humbled big time. Drove all the way down from Columbia to Tampa Bay. And Elsa began to weaken on me. I mean, that thing started weakening. By the time I was right outside of Gainesville, Florida. So it's not like I was in Augusta, Savannah, and can say, okay, well, this thing's weakening. I've only burned about 2.5, 3 hours of driving. I'm just going to turn back and count this as a $20, $30 loss in gas. I was all the way in Florida, and this thing is completely falling apart. So I made the 8.5, 9-hour drive to Tampa, drove around Clearwater for a little bit. Basically drove all the way to Tampa for 25, 35 mile per hour wind gusts. And then I literally hopped back in my car, made the drive all the way back home, stopped in like a car wash or something, just where I was not getting drenched by rain, and took a cat nap. Remember, guys, my Mazda has no AC. I don't know if you knew that, Gerald, but my Mazda had no AC.
I did not know that. That's terrifying. That's absolutely terrifying.
It was awful, dude. I mean, that tropical air just, yeah. When I was chasing that Mazda, and it's dead, by the way, it's out in my backyard. It was.
Well, that needs to be its own podcast. I think that's news to everybody that the Mazda died. I think, yeah.
It's not dead. I think it has some transmission issues. Idalia really did it, just running over multiple pine trees. She didn't like that. So I could probably get it back to life. I'm not a mechanic by any means, but I'm sure that I can get it back. But it would cost me a pretty penny. But yeah, but that was the thing with the Mazda, is I wouldn't say reckless, but I could set shop in a Category 5 hurricane, getting blasted by 100, 120 mile per hour winds, and tree branches, pieces of debris could be hitting my car. And as long as I was safe, I felt safe. I mean, I wasn't caring what was hitting that car as long as it got me back home. But I could be like that with my Mazda because it was already beat down. I'm not gonna have that this year. But uh, anyways, drove all the way back home from that Tampa Bay chase, man, and got back home at about 12 o'clock the next day. And so I basically drove all the way to Tampa, hung out there for 3 hours, and drove all the way back. It was brutal. It was an absolute haul, and it was just a brutal chase. So that's my best and worst chase. I have a couple middle ones too that were good. I chased Hurricane Ida. That was scary. I really didn't feel like I was, I didn't feel like that I had enough experience to do that. But I said, you know what? I'm a grown man. I'm gonna go down there and chase this Category 4 hurricane in the swamp of Louisiana, and I'm gonna see how it goes. And I actually ended up meeting with Josh, um, another guy on Twitter. He used to run an account out of man, I'm brain farting his last name, but he used to run an account called North Georgia Weather. Now he just kind of goes off his personal account. He lives in Asheville now, but I actually met him, and let me tell you, one of the best things you can do, as much as you want to be a loner chaser, because I'm a loner chaser by default. I'd rather just chase alone. I don't want to ride with somebody who wants to kind of just hang out a little bit longer. When I'm ready to go home, I'm ready to go home. So that's why I chase alone a lot. But when I met Josh down there in a hurricane, it was the best thing that could happen. When you have somebody else hanging out with you there, especially in a hurricane where you kind of have to set shot for a little bit, it's one of the best things. It was a huge blessing, but that was a great chase. It was a great experience. But yeah, a lot of mini chases in between there, but those are some big ones. But I'll stop talking. Let Gerald take over there.
Yeah, I mean, like Mitch said, there's been a lot of kind of in between chases, and I was on the Are You Serious podcast a couple weeks ago, and I talked about that a little bit, where kind of a lot of the chases that aren't like memorable kind of just blend together in my brain. Like, there's a lot of times where I can think, yeah, I was driving somewhere and there were clouds, but I have no idea what day that was. I have no idea, like, a lot of things. But the ones that do stick out really stick out. And, like, when I think storm chasing, I immediately think of those chases. Obviously, the big one, like we talked about at the beginning with the whole Scud story, was this past May, where it was just kind of a marginal day in the Carolinas, something that we see pretty often. Kind of one of those, Carolina magical marginal things that, starting out, you look at the Storm Prediction Center forecast, and you're like, well, that doesn't look very great. But then you kind of do some of your own diving into the models and kind of some of the parameters that you yourself like. And, that's another podcast idea right there, is we can think about, what parameters in different parts of the country really do differently, which, also brings me to some other points, but I'll bookmark that for another time.
So much to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, this podcast could really go for, like, if we were to talk about everything, we could be here till the sun goes down. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a great day. It was the night beforehand, and I had my buddy Rowan, who is a meteorology major at Charlotte with me, and he'll probably be on the podcast at some point as well. He messaged me the night before. He said, hey, I saw, the Storm Prediction Center has like a marginal risk you going out there. And I was like, well, let me check. I checked the models the night before, and it was kind of just this little coastal low that was just bringing like a shield of rain up the coastline in the morning and into the afternoon is what it looked like on the Her. And I was like, well, that doesn't really look great for me. And honestly, even if it did tornado, it'd just be this rain wrapped mess and I wouldn't see anything. So I was like, yeah, probably not for me. I'm going to go to sleep, have a good night's sleep, and enjoy my day off tomorrow. And then I woke up the next morning weirdly early and just had a weird energy about me. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was divine intervention or whatever, but I was like, you know what?
My man was confident. My man was confident.
For real, though. And I said this again on the other podcast, is like, I don't know. I just had a feeling from the second I started my car that morning. I was like, today's the day. Like, it's happening. And that's not like, I don't get that feeling every time I chase, and then this was the one time it panned out. This was like a legitimate feeling that was new to me. But either way, I checked the models that morning. I was like, you know what? Actually, this doesn't look half bad. This looks better than it did yesterday. I've got the day off. Maybe it's a sign. Let me get in the old Subaru and book it out towards the Myrtle Beach area. And I did. And in the morning, it started how it was supposed to the day before. It was just this shield of rain. There was, some embedded areas of maybe a little bit of circulation or rotation. But again, just kind of this rain rat mess. And then we got to about noon, and everything cleared up in the Myrtle Beach, Wilmington area. But there was a segment of storms, and Mitch might even remember, kind of from Charlotte to Columbia, that was slowly pushing east. And the rain had cleared out a lot earlier at the beaches than expected. So, we kind of started to destabilize again. And I was looking at that. And I was watching it come, and I remember texting Mitch this day before anything happened. I was like, and this is completely off topic, but this is the Scud Spotter podcast, so I'm going to tell it anyway. I remember telling him, I was like, Mitch, chasing makes me have to pee really bad because I just been driving around all morning. And Mitch, you want to tell them what you call that?
Yeah, rage pissing. Yeah,
rage. Yeah, there we go.
Some people can hold their pee in a lot better than others, but man, I don't know about Gerald, but I go from man, I think I have to pee to holy crap, if I do not pee, I'm just gonna pee down my leg in about 2 minutes. So yeah, I call it rage pissing.
No, and that's a real thing when storm chasing. Trust us, it's a thing. So anyway, though, that line of storms was slowly working in, and there was a little segment of it that you could tell really was built different, we'll say, than the rest of the line. And so that I targeted that, and then it started getting closer, and I had rage piss, as we'll call it. So I quickly pull off in this gas station in somewhere in Marion County, South Carolina, that general area. I run in there, I pee. And then I grab a burger because I hadn't eaten anything all day. And in this parking lot, I then throw up my drone into the sky. And that was the first look I got at that storm. And this was like a good storm. It was tall up in the atmosphere. You could see the wall cloud. And I was like, it's happening. This is it. We're doing it. And it starts getting closer. And the second I get like under the wall cloud, it dies. Like the storm just says, nope, I'm done. I'm out of here. Get wrecked, kid. Go back to Charlotte. And I was about to. I was in the car, and then I got to a point where it was either go left and go back home or keep following the shower at this point, towards the beaches a little bit. And I was like, well, I drove this far. Worst comes to worst, maybe I'll go watch the sunset at the beach or something. So I turn right towards Marion, and then I'm watching this thing. And I'm like, wait a second. This thing looks, 1, terrible on radar. 2, kind of terrible in person, except for the fact that there is a wall cloud forming, and it's like this thick, beefy wall cloud getting pretty low to the ground. And just to throw out one parameter, the LCL height that day was crazy low. It was like or the cloud base, if you're not familiar with that term, was crazy low. And then this wall cloud starts getting really low, and I'm like, okay, wait a second. So I pull over in this church parking lot, again, somewhere near Marion and Mullins, and I throw out my drone. And I'm looking at this thing, and at the time, it was actually producing, and I had no idea. I was like, wow, that's a nice wall cloud, but this was as it was over Marion producing Ep1 damage. It just wasn't fully condensed and wasn't super pretty at that time. But then the second it got past Marion a little bit, it really started to condense. It got to the ground, and God bless this woman who was also in this parking lot behind me. I'm freaking out. I'm like jumping up and down. I'm like, tornado, it's happening, like right there. And she's just staring at me like, okay, I don't know what you're talking about, kid. I don't know who you are. You've got random Charlotte gear and Charlotte stickers on your car with a North Carolina plate. I don't know why you're here. But yeah, it started, and then I followed it, and excuse me, next thing I know, I'm in a Piggly Wiggly parking lot, which is why I'm wearing the Piggly Wiggly shirt today.
Sure.
And I'm looking at the pictures I took, and I'm like, it happened. I post the video on Twitter. It, blows up for at least my metrics. It blew up. And then after that point, I was like, all right, I'm done. We did it. I got my tornado, and I'm standing in this Piggly Wiggly parking lot, freaking out, doing backflips and stuff. Not really, but mentally backflips. And I look up, and I kid you not, another wall cloud is forming, and another funnel is coming down. And I'm like, oh my God, we're not done. We're doing this again. And then I follow that, and, next thing I know, that one's producing. And then finally, I end up in a different church parking lot, this time in North Carolina. By the end of it, the sun is setting, the cicadas are going crazy, I'm in the middle of nowhere, and that was probably one of the most insane, peaceful, everything just coming together moments. In fact, I think I might have cried a little, I'll be completely honest, because before this moment, I had chased so many times and not seen tornadoes. I hadn't seen anything exciting, at least to my metric that I was looking for. And then today, like every star and every ingredient aligned, and it was perfect. In fact, the first tornado I didn't even mention was probably twin tornadoes. Like looking back at it, so I somehow always forget to mention that part. But no, that was a crazy emotional experience. And on top of this, the Aurora show happened 5 days before this, and Mitch can attest how emotional that experience was. And then this happens 5 days later. So that was a pretty crazy 5-day stretch. And on top of that, to be honest, on a personal level, I was not having a very good year between the crazy things in school and some other personal battles I was fighting. It was just kind of tough. And then to have a 5-day stretch like that was pretty insane. So that is easily my best storm chase. My worst happened also in the same year, this year, in April, I would say. And I say it's the worst. In all honesty, it wasn't that big of a deal to me, but I feel like saying it. I can't think of another chase that was worse in general. So I was storm chasing in the Midlands, like probably 30 minutes from Mitch's house, in all honesty. And it was once again a marginal day. It might have been slight. I can't remember. But either way, I'm driving around in North South Carolina, which, if you don't know, is a real place. It's a literal town in South Carolina called North. And I'm parked at this stop sign, just chilling. I'll be honest, I was looking at radar, but I was at a stop sign, so, it was okay. Like, it's not like I was texting and driving real life-wise. And then somebody just takes the corner at the stop sign I'm sitting at and just T-bones me. And my car ended up getting totaled. And true story, I drove all the way back to Charlotte in a misty fog with my door jammed in and the window open, so fog and like mist is hitting me in the face on the drive home. So that was probably my worst storm chase. But yeah, that's I'll leave that one to that. So I think the next thing we'll talk about, unless you have something else you want to talk about, Mitch, is your favorite type of weather to forecast.
Yeah, winter weather is definitely no. I don't think anything will ever beat that. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much it disappoints me, how much it lets me down. I just always come back for more. But I love the tropics too. I've really, there's a cat in the background. Cool. That's a nice added character to the videos. But certainly winter weather is definitely the thing for me. The tropics is also huge for me. Yeah, we're gonna have to get that cat out of here, man.
We might have to change the podcast name from Scud Spotter to Cat Spotter Podcast.
See, that cat is my mom's cat, and she has not got used to me yet. All my other cats absolutely love me, man. So
well, it makes you feeling better, Mitch. We made it 42 minutes in before a cat appearance, so that's pretty good. That's not bad.
Yeah, it really is.
By the way, while we're here, if you have made it to the 42-minute mark, let us know in the comments and say that you saw Mitch's cat, because then we'll know for real that you watched through the whole thing for that little 10-second blurb of a cat.
Hey, people on my YouTube always say, "Man, you gotta let your cats in there more. They love it. So they love when there's a guest appearance or they hear a random screech in the background from one of my kids." But anyways, if y'all do see a cat in the background, well, we got cats. So one got left in here by my fault. But yeah, winter weather is my favorite. I'm very passionate about winter weather. That's how my channel took off. I just and I love talking about it because even when it doesn't hit my state, like I enjoy talking about in other places. For example, one of my most successful months on YouTube was this past January when, me and Gerald sitting east of the Appalachian Mountains in the Carolinas was having to watch everybody west of the Appalachian Mountains, Tennessee, northern Alabama, points west, get this crazy Arctic air mass, snowing in Nashville in the single digits.
That was a very rough month to exist in the Carolinas.
Yeah, it was tough. We were. It's hard to not get your, you obviously don't, well, some people do, but, you don't take it personal, but at the same time, you're like, holy crap, throw us a bone over here. Give us a winter weather advisory, throw us a sleet pellet, some freezing rain. I mean, I'll take it all. I'm not even going to lie to you. Give me an ice storm. But anyways.
It feels like that is a terrible theme here. Even like a week from now, for those of you who are watching this on release date, we're kind of forecasting this, pattern change, if you will, in a boundary. But I'll be honest with you, looking at some of the models, I'm not sure we're going to luck out here. I think the Ohio River Valley might luck out with some drier air and all. But I think Columbia and all, it might just rain a lot. Dew point still at 72, but Knoxville might be beautiful. Dew point is 60. And it's just, the Appalachia chain does some crazy things. And to its credit, if it wasn't there, we wouldn't get our cold air damming events and things. But it's sometimes it's hard to root for that mountain chain.
It is. And I love it. We love our mountains. I wouldn't change anything geographically about it, even though I couldn't if I wanted to. But yeah, we do get some CAD events. If you don't know what CAD is, stands for cold air damming. And, cold air gets trapped east of the Appalachian Mountains. And, sometimes us here in the Carolinas, we getting a raging winter storm, but, you head on over to Knoxville or something, which, in general is further northwest than just about all of us. And they're getting a cold rain at 38. So, sometimes we get some, but we haven't gotten that since January of 2022. So, it's hard to talk much on that, but anyways, kind of going back to that, like this past January, most successful month ever, altogether wise. And, was talking about winter weather in an area that isn't my own backyard, here in South Carolina. And, I remember the comments, because I think obviously with me and Gerald's channel, we probably have more people tuning in from the Carolinas than any states, but, just because this is where we started before we kind of branched out. But I remember people in the Carolinas like Mitch. It's almost like someone were getting frustrated with me, like, Mitch, when are we going to get anything? When are we going to get this, that, and the other? But I'm just like, trust me, I want it just as much as y'all do. But it is what it is, and you kind of have to keep talking about it, even though you, in the back of your mind, when you're talking about it, you're like, gosh, this sucks. But you just keep talking about it. But listen, there is nothing. And I don't think Gerald has had the luxury of experiencing this yet with his success with his channel. There is nothing quite as exciting as the 1-2 punch of watching your channel grow because you're breaking down a winter storm in your own backyard. And I got to experience that in January of 2022. That was one of the most coolest weeks in my life. Tracking, even 2 weeks. The first one missed my neck of the woods. Got a little bit of freezing rain. The second one did not. Got a few inches of snow. But one of the coolest periods of my channel, just it was so exciting. I felt like the days were just flying by. It was fun, and I just can't wait to do it again. I can't wait to track a winter storm for my people in the Carolinas and even Georgia up to Virginia, because Southern VA has gotten, let's just say, it's screwed. Atlanta has, our people in Georgia has, got left out. But once you start to get in Alabama, I call Northern Alabama Montana. That's a thing that I do on Twitter. I call them Montana. And it just is because, like, Northern Montana, it seems like has a whole entire separate climate than anybody else in the Southeast for whatever reason. But pulling for everybody here for something. And I really hope somehow we can fight off the La Nina enough to somehow squeeze in something around here. But winter weather, no doubt, is my favorite. Tropics is a close second. I enjoy talking about the tropics because I enjoy really breaking down how it works. And I feel like that I can, if there's 3 weather topics to me, at least, you got severe weather, the tropics, and winter weather. The tropics I flow the best with speaking on it. I just feel like that once I get about 1 or 2 days into breaking down a tropical system, my flow just increases more and more, unless I'm really struggling to start a video, which happens a lot for me. But tropics close second, and then severe weather is way on down behind that. Just like I think Gerald would agree, I'd much rather chase severe weather than talk severe weather. Now, I have noticed on my channel the last 2 springs, I've had some pretty big videos with people tuning in, but hearing about severe weather. But most people are tuning in to people going live, and rightfully so. I mean, the storm chasing thing they got going on these days with people going live, and it is really awesome. I think it's one of the coolest things that has really got big over the last few years with all these storm chasers providing you guys live feeds, being in this, seeing tornadoes live like you're watching, like a movie or something. It's unreal. And of course, you got people like the Ryan Halls of the world, which is a household name in the weather community, that go live and show you radar feeds. There's a lot of other great people who do it too out there. Same deal, man. Of course, you can talk about severe weather leading up to the days and even the morning of a severe weather event. But when that event's ongoing, you don't want to talk. You don't want to hear stuff about talking about something that's actually going on. So I always in my videos I keep things kind of 12 hours ahead or 24 hours ahead and then onward. But just breaking down what goes into severe weather, I don't flow the best with it. It's not, I'm passionate about it, but I would say if there's one thing out of the three that I lack the most knowledge on is severe weather. I try to just talk about the basic fundamentals when it comes to severe weather, because I am big on my channel about explaining what drives everything. I'm huge into that. So my videos go on for an eternity, but I just don't super enjoy talking about severe weather. I rather just get out there, experience it. So that's my 3 in order.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with a lot of what you just said on that. So I'm like you, where I love storm chasing. I love being in severe weather. In fact, I even love forecasting severe weather on a mesoscale level here in the Carolinas. If I'm storm chasing it, I love forecasting it. But sorry to all you folks in the Dakotas. There's nothing I hate more than having to forecast a threat out there for a couple reasons. One, it's just so different than what I'm used to in the East Coast. 2, I just haven't experienced it out there. I don't really know what y'all are cooking with, to be honest. And also, the ingredients that fuel your storms are different than ours, so I feel like I don't fully understand them as well as I understand, South Carolina severe weather setups and North Carolina severe weather setups, and really any severe weather setups kind of east of the Appalachia chain. So on overall, if you were to lump severe weather together, it's also my number 3. And then I would put tropics at 2 as well. I like hurricane forecasting, but for me, it feels like hurricane season is so short usually. Normally June isn't active. Normally July isn't active. This year was a little weird. And even a lot of times August isn't all that active. It feels like just a crazy month and a half of insanity from like middle of September through October. That's like tropic season to me. So that's one that can really be a grind to do. But it can be, it can be rewarding and a lot of fun to talk about. Also, like Mitch said, I think I understand that a lot better. In fact, I had a comment a couple days ago after Beryl moved through. Before Beryl had even hit the Yucatan, I was talking about, I thought Texas would be the landfall location given, the things I was seeing in the models. And I was nice enough to get a really nice comment from somebody saying, I was watching you 5 days ago and you were saying Texas when everyone was saying Mexico. So I feel like I understand the ensembles and the steering currents and how rapid intensification and all can affect that forecast. And I think it'd be great and a lot of fun to work in a coastal market because of that. But winter weather's number 1 for me, for sure. Especially like Mitch said, on a local, basis. I remember in 2022 when we had those 3 winter storms, I was still living back home because that was my senior year of high school. And the first one was the big one for Pickens, where I'm from. The other 2, we didn't really get anything out of. We're a little too far west. But that was the first big winter storm we had in a couple years. And I basically locked myself in my room for 5 days, nonstop refreshing models and like all of that. Probably, honestly, to an unhealthy level. Like my parents were probably like, "Are you okay? Like, do we need to get a doctor?" But no, that was a ton of fun to forecast. And that was also, I think, how my channel kind of, well, technically I did a couple videos on that, but that was before I really started the process. So that was kind of fun to do. But yeah, winter weather's a ton of fun. Unfortunately, though, also, again, I'm not the biggest fan of forecasting winter weather in like Minnesota because 1, they don't really care all that much. It's normal to them. 2, it's so far from me that it's like, is what it is. So if I had to kind of put one overall theme on it, my favorite thing to forecast is generally what's impacting me directly, which probably sounds selfish and all, but it's the truth, to be completely honest. I rather forecast severe weather here than forecast snow in Minnesota. It's just, even though severe weather is number 3 on my list and snow is 1, it's just a matter of where it's happening and who it's affecting and all. But there's not, I wouldn't say I really hate forecasting any weather, but it does get old after a while during severe weather season. In fact, a lot of you, I took a break a little bit there from kind of April through much of June. And one of the biggest reasons for that was I was just kind of tired of talking about it. Also, a lot of my viewers, like Mitch said, are from the Carolinas and kind of, the Midwest, but like Michigan Midwest, not so much Dakota's Midwest. So it also just feels like I wasn't really getting the message across to a lot of people. And also, like Mitch talked about, we have these guys that do these live streams, and girls both, that, really do a lot of great content on a live level. Also, people generally tune into their local news station when severe weather's happening. So, I just felt like what I do in the format I do it maybe wasn't all that useful. But I will add in the future, and I think we're going to probably end the video or the podcast with kind of talking about future plans here and then some shout outs because we're hitting the hour mark now. I forget where I was going with that train of thought. Let me try to backtrack. What was I saying, Mitch? Remind me. Something about something.
Yeah. Yeah,
future plans. There we go. That's it. Sorry. On the future side of things, I think it would be fun to do some live streams in a Ryan Hall style with kind of, radar analysis and all. I love analyzing radar. That's super fun to me. But obviously with school schedule and work schedule, and I don't live by myself, kind of coordinating that on a time frame wise is a little difficult. But I think that would be fun to do in the future. So again, recapping, I just kind of like forecasting what's here, but overall winter weather is probably my favorite. With that said, we've gone through a lot of pretty cool topics so far. I think the next thing we'll talk about is future plans. And then we will probably end with some shout outs and save some of our other topics for the next time. So Mitch, I'll go ahead and let you kind of do some of that.
Yeah. Future plans is just to keep grinding with this channel. I think God willing, I'd like to do this full time one day, and I think it'll happen, unless God leads me in another direction, which I'm totally cool with. And I feel like he will be very clear with that. But that is I would say the long-term plan. I'm fortunate enough to have a really good full-time job here locally, and they take care of me. They kind of, they let me use my time that I do have in the way I want to. Even if I didn't have any time left, they'd let me take, unpaid time off to chase. And, so it would take something substantial for me to quit that job and to kind of commit to YouTube full time. It would take a massive spike in growth, probably a criteria met as far as the financial side of things, if we're being real. But that's a long-term, deal with me and planned. But kind of in shorter term, kind of mashing that with goals. I really would like to get a video over 100,000 views. I don't think I've said this many times, I don't know of any YouTube channel out there that has 77,000 subscribers, over 2,200 videos, that does not at least have one video with over 100,000 views. And I think that kind of goes just to the fact that my channel is not very flashy, and that kind of introduces the next thing I'm going to say, which is 2025. I'm going to even say this: 2025 into 2026 is going to be a time period in my journey with this where I'm going to make some changes to the channel, and a part of it is just me getting out of my comfort zone with some things, because for somebody that does have a successful YouTube channel with 77,000 subscribers, believe it or not, I'm not good with technology. You would seem like that somebody with this success with something like a YouTube would be, but my setup is basic. I've taken pictures of it, put it on social media before. I don't have a high-end computer. I don't have a super high-end mic. As you can tell, I do it in my bedroom. This is the same setting that I do my YouTube channels on. So I know that my growth on my channel is probably going to be steady, I would say is the best word for it, with some occasional spikes. But I am very blessed to have an incredible following that is very loyal. I have a core following, and credit goes obviously to them for that. But on my side of things, I think consistency is very key with doing a YouTube channel. You pump out you have a set time you drop a video, or either just set days you drop a video a week. And I think people latch onto that. I think that's huge on YouTube. And even when there's nothing going on, I hop on there and just talk about a general risk of thunderstorms across the country. And this is the time of the year with that. We got a big severe weather event. Looks like it's going to happen in the Midwest, the Ohio Valley tomorrow. But, on an average summer day, there's nothing really dramatic to talk about. Typically from June to July, even parts into August, that is this, for a person who does YouTube on weather, like what me and Gerald do, this is probably our slowest time. So when you have that core to your channel, people who are members to your channel, like I'm blessed to have, it helps me get through the slower times. And then of course, when the fast times, when the big time spikes in growth come, it's just hard to keep up with sometimes. It's like Gerald said, watching the analytics on YouTube Studio when your channel is popping off. Sometimes I'll get on work, dude, no lie, and I'll put on the live feed, and then I'll put it on a tab in the background, and I'll be doing my work. I'll be just typing, helping customers out, and then about 30 minutes will go by, and I know a video is going viral. I know it's going viral, and then I'll see my subscriber count right there, and then I'll push that tab 30 minutes later, and then I'll watch it just spike, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is incredible.
And I'll add in here really quickly, just for those of you who have any aspirations of doing YouTube, especially if you want to do it full time from a financial standpoint, the spikes are so important to building that base that Mitch talks about, because it's no secret, and I'll tell everybody, I'm sure Mitch is fine, letting this be out there as well. Obviously, on the money side of things, we make more during the winter and during the tropical season. Right. But like June, July, especially August as well, if there's nothing going on in the tropics, having that core base is so important to still having some small form of income. And again, Mitch talked about doing this full time potentially in the future. And that's a big part, is whenever you have those spikes, you can't just let go of it. You have to hold on to that and kind of know that at one point you're not going to have those spikes, and you just got to push through with those people who are nice enough and loyal enough to come back. I mean, I know I also have not nearly as much as you. I've probably got about maybe 300 people, maybe 500 that are a core audience that no matter what I post, no matter how slow it is, will come back. But those are the people, and probably the same people that are going to watch this, that really run these channels and allow them to keep going year round. Yeah. So I just want to throw that out there real quick.
No, that's good. No, I mean, and that's how I am. I have a very go-getter mentality. When it gets like that, I put my foot on the gas and I produce content nonstop. I mean, on all social media profiles. That's when you, I wouldn't use the word take advantage, but in the way you are, but not in a negative sense, but that's when you really grab it by the horns and go for the growth. And, you got to take advantage of having multiple social media profiles. You got to pump out the content. And some people think I'm crazy for doing 2 videos a day. They're like, dude, that's excessive. And sometimes it is. But in times like these, I don't do it. But when it's popping, and when you have something with the tropics and winter weather, not so much severe weather, but I'll even do it then. But the tropics and severe weather, when you, for example, the tropics, man, you wake up and you got a 50-mile-per-hour tropical storm. You wait until the next morning, it's a Category 5 hurricane. So on one side you would think, well, if it's going to change so much, why keep on making updates? Well, a lot of people want the updates because there's such an information lag in the weather world. Such a massive information lag. So it's a 1-2 punch for me. It's, hey, get the latest and greatest information to people. And then 2, it's an opportunity for growth for the channel. And when it's rolling, I mean, when you're tracking a major hurricane out there in the Atlantic, or you're 3 or 4 days out from a potential winter storm that's going to hit an area that has not seen winter weather in maybe months or maybe years, you put your foot on the gas. And you keep pumping out the content and helping people get aware, and you're enjoying the process too. It just takes a lot of work. For me especially, I got a family, I got other things going on. I have a life outside of weather. That'll be another topic for another day that we can get into. But it's I guess to kind of round it back to the question you asked me, as far as my plans with this is to make it full time, and in the shorter term, it's getting into next year, is to make upgrades to the channel. A lot of people on my channel know that I've had a lot of big time changes in me and my family's life. My wife she has finished her degree over the last few months to becoming a teacher. She's starting to become an elementary school, a fourth grade teacher in a few weeks. So, we've had to put a lot of financial things on the back burner. We've had to take a step back and take multiple steps forward. And fortunately, those multiple steps forward are about to come show to the surface. So next chapter of our lives coming up financially, and just a lot of big changes, a lot of blessings that have came from this. But, I've just kind of had to kind of limit growth. I've had to just kind of prevent any, just kind of keep anything upgrades with the channel at a limit, just because just really haven't had just the financial things and ways to do it right now. And there's just been so many other things going on with life. But I can tell you 2025 and the 2026, I want to potentially add merch to the channel. A lot of people are interested in that. Nothing too crazy, not going to get too hung up on it, but I would love to put some of my sayings that I do on social media on some coffee mugs, some shirts. Me and Gerald.
I know personally, I would love a coffee mug that says "Lodge She Comin'" or "Scud D's Nuts." Either one, I'll buy them both.
Yeah.
I'll even get a shirt or a hat personally.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people about the law. We come in and people just say, "Hey, man, we'll buy a coffee mug from you just to support you." So I think that would be a good thing. It's just that's something that I think after I get through the grind of the fall, and I think when we roll into the 2025, but a lot of big plans for the channel and things like that. So that was a lot longer than it needed to be, but you're off to you now.
Yeah, that was good. That was a lot of great information. Personally, I feel very confident that one day Mitch will be doing this full time. I think his path is, even if it takes another year, 2 years, 5 years, obviously we don't know. But I feel very confident in Mitch's path. On a personal level, I kind of just have to go where the wind takes me with this a little bit, to be honest with y'all. Obviously, like I said, I'm in school getting a degree for this, so the goal growing up was always to do this, the meteorology thing broadcast-wise at some local, TV station at a local market. But to be honest with you, just the way that AI and social media have changed the landscape of TV, obviously that's still the goal, but that's a job that is changing how that looks. So personally, right now, the big dream for me would be obviously through the next 2 years, or I guess really a year and a half at this point that I have of school, would be to, keep doing what I do now, get the growth I can out of it, use whatever money I make off of this to help fund my education. And then after I graduate, the real dream would be find a news station that lets me keep doing it, but also does local things at that station. That would be a big dream of mine, and I think really it's just finding that station or that market that is willing to let me do it. It might take a little bit of time. I might have to bounce around a little, but I feel confident no matter what that one day, 10 years from now, you're still going to see my face in front of some sort of camera doing weather. Whether that's on GMWeather YouTube page or somewhere else, I don't know. We'll see. But either way, it's kind of funny. I'm already living my dream. I don't even have the degree yet. I get to wake up every day and have an audience of people that are willing to listen to me yap on for however long. But channel specific wise, I would, like I said, like to do some live streaming. I would also like to do a little bit more storm chasing content. Those are a little more personable. And also, Mitch didn't mention this. This podcast I think is a pretty fun little future plan that we can definitely build a lot off of. And I think even if for some reason the YouTube channel of mine dies way on down the road, because it has to, I think this is something that we could still do either way, just to have a nice little break from forecasting and just kind of get to talk about life a little. So that's kind of my future plans. We've gone about an hour and 10 minutes now, so I think we're gonna wrap things up with some shout outs and then let y'all get back to your life. So Mitch, if you want to go ahead and talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. Man, there's so many people that I know of that aren't coming to my head right now. I'll tell you one person I really like, man, and he's I think he does the Carolinas a big service. Is what's his name? I think Evan, the guy who does the fall forecast, is
Yeah, you
Evan,
stole
right?
one of
Yep.
mine. Evan and Peter, for those of you who don't know those two, that's a power combo right there in terms of
Yeah.
meteorology and photography and just all out Earth
Peter.
things that happen.
Yeah, Peter is probably the most talented guy. I think he's the most talented guy, the most underrated talented guy in the weather community. I'm talking about in the entire lower 48. I really do think he is. I don't, between his photography skills, I mean, if you've ever, he's got the knowledge too. I mean, he's not just a content producer. He's got knowledge too. He's a fantastic storm chaser. He has a knack for that. Um, and always been a cool dude to me. There's a lot of people out there in the community that get persuaded by other people's opinions to have a different opinion about somebody else, and I've been a victim to that. And that's just the way it is out there. It doesn't just go in the weather community; it goes anywhere in life. But he's a great guy. Evan is. If you don't know who we're talking about, I wish I knew his right off the top of my head. But
I
anyways,
think it might just be Evan Fisher WX, maybe. Or if you just look up Evan Fisher on the internet, I'm sure it'll pop up because he runs fall foliage and all. I think Peter helps him with that. So
he does fall foliage stuff, guys. And if you follow me or Gerald on social media, you know that we're big into that. I'm a geek when it comes to fall. I'm kind of one of them men that hop on Pinterest and be looking at fall pictures in June and July. But he does the Carolinas a great service by providing, I think him and Peter, I believe, run that Explore Fall account. But just these graphics that are way out of my league as far as smarts and how he designs these. But, occasionally do areas outside the Carolinas too. And it seems like everything that he posts is pretty much gold. So, those guys I've met. Even though with the weather community, he's not very active with the weather, but a guy named Chris Wolf, I mentioned him, I think earlier in the podcast, but he's a really good friend. He's one of my best friends, and he's helped me with a lot of things outside of the weather. 99% of our conversations isn't even about weather, but we met through a mutual interest with the weather. But he's a guy that I talk to almost daily. Great conversation. He's helped me with my fitness and nutrition journey. He's helped me become a better man, and he's challenged my thoughts on some things. And good dude. And I've met a lot of other great people in there too. There's Aaron, there's Bryce, there's Jack's a good dude. I've never met him in person. I know you have. Andrew is a great guy. There's certain people you just get good vibes from, and Andrew's one of them. I get fantastic vibes from Andrew. There's just certain people that you can, and I feel like it's a gift and a curse for me, because in a way you're kind of being judgmental and you haven't even met the person, so you have to be careful the way you think. But I feel like I do have a good gauge on people through social media, and you just kind of get a good feeling about certain people, I would say. But there's a lot of other people. There's a guy up in I think he calls himself like Storm Tracker Zacher, but Zach, he's in Eastern Tennessee around the just outside of Knoxville.
Tri-Cities, is that what we call it?
Tri-Cities.
Tri-Cities,
yeah,
that's the one, yeah.
He's a good guy. He's a nerd with it. He takes it personal like I do sometimes, so I can really relate to his sarcastic frustration. I am very sarcastic. Just there's a lot of great people out there. There's a lot of great people even outside the Carolinas that I've met, conversate with, and just, there's people on the West Coast. There's a guy that, like in the Sierra Nevada, that he's always a cool dude, and I'm really bad about remembering names, but he always good talk with him, good conversation with him. But there's a lot of good people out there that I wish more people could show love. Like for me, it was a freaking grind to get to 1,000 followers. It took me 4 or 5 years. And I really do wish, and I don't want to get too far off this because I know we're kind of getting past our time. I really wish people could sometimes set their ego aside, and that have a really big following, and just hit the retweet button. I think it's easy to hit the like button, but I think in a way people view it like, I don't think they view people as a threat, but I think that for some, it's like, you know what, you're content doesn't value a retweet, in my opinion. And I'm not trying to, predict the way somebody else thinks, but I just wish some people would pull the retweet button on something besides, just support other people's content. I think that's huge. And unfortunately, people who take off sometimes, they'll change. I'm not going to mention any names with that. There's no point in getting into that. But, I know a lot of people off the top of my head where had 50, 60 followers, and then they turned out to be a very talented individual, whether they're a storm chaser, whether they are great at surveying tornadoes and Googling stuff, and all of a sudden is a successful YouTuber or whatever. But they go from 50, 60 followers to all of a sudden they have 5,000 followers in maybe a 6-month span. And not saying they don't deserve that, but they change. And there's just subtle things you can tell with some people when they get a big following, they change. And that's something that I told myself a long time ago. If my stuff ever takes off, I will stay the exact same. If somebody with no profile picture, produces a really sick picture of a rainbow and some clouds, it's simple. I just hit the retweet button. I mean, I think people appreciate that. So I'll leave it on that.
Yeah, I think there's not much you said I don't agree with there. Shout out wise, I'm going to do a couple podcast shout outs. We did Are You Serious earlier, and I'll kind of add to that with Jamie, Andrew, and kind of the whole crew there at WMBF in Myrtle Beach. I visited there a couple weeks ago, and that just shout out to everyone at that news station, because honestly that was an incredible day, and that was a great kind of reminder of why I'm going through all the math and the physics and the other crazy things that I have to study, with the goal of getting somewhere like that one day. So they're all awesome. I'll give them a shout out for that, and also obviously for letting me on the podcast. Also, Chaser Chat podcast is pretty fun. And me and Mitch, actually, I don't know if we're really supposed to say this, but we recorded an episode with them this past week, which should get released, I think, 10 days from now. So I don't know how many people are going to even listen to this part of the video, so probably won't matter that we spoiled that a little bit, but you were going to find out eventually anyway. So those podcasts are great. On a more personal level, I've got a couple people my age that do the weather. Like you talked about, Jack and Andrew, they're great. They're both in the Carolinas. Like I said, my buddy Rowan, who I hang out with a lot and I go to school with. All great guys who are good people to go to when you just need someone to talk to. That know about the weather, and also, you could just talk on a more personal level and talk about, whatever challenges college kids face. So yeah, those are some great people. There are also, like Mitch said, a ton of people, and you'll probably meet some of them on this podcast if we can get them on. In fact, Evan and Peter would be great for fall time. If we get a weekend there that's not busy and we can bring them on,
fantastic.
That would be awesome.
Fantastic idea. Great idea.
Yeah, so we'll have to reach out to them. But so there's just, honestly, the weather community is great. Unfortunately, we all know there's some people that are not as great, or maybe don't have the same moral compass as others. But either way, just an awesome community. So I think with all of that said, we went almost an hour and 20 minutes, so probably longer than the normal podcast. But this was definitely a lot of fun. We'll do it again. As for when, I have no idea, but we will keep you updated on that for sure. And again, if you haven't already subscribed to my channel and Mitch's channel, please do so. His channel will be linked in the description of this. My channel is obviously where this was posted. Like it, and share it with some other weather nerds that you think might find it fun to kind of watch. It's also just some fun background noise if you're driving to work, or if you're cooking, or I don't know who listens to two weirdos talk about the weather for fun, but I'm sure plenty of you do. So anyway, thanks again for watching. This was episode 1, What the Scud, of the Scud Spotter podcast. Thanks again, and we'll see you all next time.